We'll go to Mikail Kamara's breakout next.
Ooh.
Again, I don't know where I came in to Mikail's session, and there might be another like 5-6 minutes of him answering questions. So I'm not sure about that. Definitely go check out their interviews, obviously. But they asked Mikail to describe the team. He said fast, physical, relentless. He said one of the things that he was, I don't know if he said he was nervous about it. I don't think that was his quote, but one of the things he was kind of looking forward to was like, okay, you play these Nebraska teams, you play these Maryland teams, like they're going to be physical. And he was like, wait a second, like we're pretty physical too. We're a pretty physical bunch ourselves.
And I imagine we got a little more physical. Like we've always been like generally physical, like as a team. Like I think one thing that we haven't talked about at all last year is how good of a like downfield blocking we were from the outside guys and the receivers. Like we were the best in the country at that. We have physical corners that are not afraid to tackle. We're physical at all three levels at all times. Hell, even our quarterback was physical, playing through injury, playing through pain. Sure, Mendoza is the same way. 98 yards with my boys. That's just gritty as hell. It's obviously it's a lot of times it's coach speak, but I mean this team lives it. They really do. And yeah, and then finally getting to my point, the trenches. I think we're going to see a huge upgrade this upcoming year in terms of the physicality there. Obviously, you can be tough, but like when you're just outmatched, you're outmatched sometimes. And obviously, we saw that in the Ohio State and Notre Dame games. Hung around with Michigan, so that's a really good sign that we were able to get that dub. So it gives me hope that we can turn a corner. It's kind of like we're at like 33% against like the top trenches teams this year. I'd say the three best trenches teams we'll face this year will probably be Penn State, Iowa. I mean, those four. It's those four
It's
games.
those four. It really is
It's the
those
four
four.
games.
Those are
But
good. Those are good teams with
I
a
will
really good
say,
collection of talent.
the only two schools to have. So I've referenced Phil Steele's position room rankings, right? Which I find very fascinating. Gives you kind of a lay of the land in terms of what your schedule looks like. For O-line, D-line, the only two schools we play that have an O-line and D-line ranked ahead of us is Iowa and Penn State. So in terms of physicality, I know we can hang with Iowa. Obviously, these are just words on paper. Everything's going to be determined inside the numbers, like Signetti likes to say. And, just knowing going into it that we already have that hype and knowing that we're probably going to exceed it just based on what happened last year. Like, I mean, we're going to be better at the O-line, just in the trenches, just a matter of how good. Are we there yet? Stacking days, stacking weeks, stacking months, stacking years. Yeah, are we there yet? Are we ahead of schedule? And we brought in a lot of talented kids in those trenches, and it's exciting. I'm so pumped to just see it on the field, man. 33 days.
It's coming quick. They asked the question to Mikail was, you have the Oregon and the Penn State games canceled. They said they're loud. What did you learn from those games, meaning like Ohio State, Penn State, or Ohio State, Notre Dame in 2024? And he said leading into those games last year, he was focused on kind of ignoring the noise, blocking out the scene, downplaying the magnitude of the moment. And he said he thought it messed with the way he prepared and the way he played in the game. He said that this year the goal is to embrace that moment when he's playing in a big game, to acknowledge it's a big game and not to get like too amped up or in that sense, but just kind of understand the moment, elevate to the moment, and not I guess be caught off guard in a sense. That's not what he said, but that's kind of the way it seemed like he was putting it. Is like, no, like these environments are talked about the way they're talked about. Like they're like terrifying environments for a reason. So embrace being in those environments. Don't just kind of I guess run from the noise. So it's the way a lot of these guys are talking about the lessons they learned in 2024 and carrying that over into 2025. It's like, yeah, it really was the first time a lot of them had faced 100,000 people screaming against them. It's like that's an experience to anybody seeing it for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a huge step up. Like, obviously, when it comes to, I think a lot of the questions people were asking, like, can these James Madison kids hang with the physicality of the Big Ten? And clearly the answer was yes. Like at a point where it's like not even like group of five guys should be looked. If you're an all conference group of five guy, you should probably be playing power four football. Just from what you saw from an Indiana team that had a transfer class basically completely compiled of group of 5 guys. And they were able to come in and go all the way to the playoff. Now they're bringing in guys from, the Power 4 ranks and trying to see how that starts to translate over. It's going to be a huge factor. I think something that goes unsaid about these group of 5 guys is the fact that, they go from playing in 25,000 people stadiums all the way to 100K. And for those SEC fans listening, that is 4 times the seating capacity of a typical Sun Belt stadium. So yeah, a big upsell. I mean, that's only going to like when you're a 20-year-old, 21-year-old person, I mean, it's only natural to start getting those butterflies, start getting those jitters. Not saying, our guys are getting rattled and stuff, but it's only natural to have some sort of emotions around it, right? Especially when it's your first time. Ohio State first big game in a hostile environment, really, for those guys, right? Notre Dame first playoff game for those guys. Totally different from an Ohio State kind of game where it's like, okay, it's just a big game during season. Like Notre Dame, we're at Notre Dame. It's win or go home. Like everything's on the line. All your goals. All
You're the
season.
only game on.
Different type of
Everyone's
feeling. I'm not
watching
saying
you.
they came out flat. They just were outmatched, and maybe
No, they
some of it
definitely
had to
didn't
do
come
with
out flat.
With that, maybe it had to do with those environments, and but yeah, there was just they stacked another year, and now they're that much closer to knocking off a team in the playoff and maybe even running the table. So I mean, I'm just excited to get into it and kind of see where we're at going after this year, because really the goal is, like, if we're trying to like lowball this, obviously we think very highly, we think they're going to the playoff, but realistically, they go 9-3 this year, we're still on schedule, we're rolling just fine, recruiting's not going to take that much of a dip. I mean, we win 9 games and then maybe get a 10th win in a bowl game, we're right where we need to be. If we just miss out on that playoff for whatever reason.
I
But
don't even like the way you're talking right now.
Yeah, I know. You don't like, this is where you don't set the self-imposed limitations. I think the sky's the limit for this team. I think this team has the talent and the coaching to win the national title. Now, what I always say is, does that happen every time when you do have the talent and the coaching? Because guess what? There's probably 10 other teams that have that too. So, especially in this portal era where it used to be, about like 5 teams were capable of winning a title. These days, you look at these preview magazines. I mean, I'd say there's like 9 teams in the Big Ten that can go to the playoff, probably another 9 in the SEC. And of those 9 in each, probably 5 can probably win it all, So it's a crazy, very, very high parity college football league we have right now.
Well,
And
speaking of the
how
coaches,
do we handle it this year? How do we handle a little bit of hype? Not saying there's probably not enough hype for this team, all things considered, but there is still, expectations going into it where there probably wasn't any last year.
Speaking of coaching,
hey, Les Austin Jr. said, "Stop it! Indiana can't even win the Big Ten. You don't even need to win the Big Ten to win the national title." Les Austin Jr. Did you not watch ball last year? Ohio State didn't even make the title game, and they ran the table all the way. They got 4th place in the league, went all the way to the national title. So you can't tell me what can't happen. Anyways,
shout out to Brian Galvin. Brian, if you don't follow Brian on Twitter, Brian's been tweeting out cut-ups of different. Actually, a bunch of Indiana players. So we've been retweeting those off the accounts that have been awesome. If you like kind of like short film cut-ups, definitely give Brian a follow. He's saying this team is probably better than last year's team based on what he's seen.
They are 100% better than last year. In every single position group is upgraded from last year. Every single one. I would say the biggest one obviously would be quarterback, because that's one person and it comes right. So it really just comes down to that. Is he better than Rourke? Is Mendoza going to be execute on 3rd downs just as good as Rourke and then maybe have some more explosive plays than he does? I mean, Rourke played damn near perfect. Like I said, besides, besides
10 quarters of football, he was perfect. And I do agree.
He really was. And,
he was.
Mendoza
he was 9th in the Heisman. He missed a game.
Because it's so quarterback friendly. And it's like, Mendoza could be the guy with his mobility to get Indiana in that spot to where they can, with his mobility, with his kind of dog mentality, with his talent, obviously, can get them to that next level in terms of winning those big games, get a big win at Penn State, at Oregon, something like that, get to 11-1, 12-0 back in the playoff. World's their oyster.
Yeah, it's clear Les takes his talking points from ESPN, SEC Twitter accounts and doesn't actually watch ball. So I'm going to move on with the coaches. They asked Mikail Kamara about Pat Kuntz and Buda Williams. He talked about two different coaching styles. He said Kuntz is more like energetic, detail-oriented. Buda's much more laid back. He said early in his career, he appreciated like Kuntz's like fire, his energy, his intensity, his attention to detail because he's still learning, developing. He said as he's gotten older, as he's developed as a player, and as he's matured, he appreciates Coach Buda's laid back style and his ability to kind of let confidence breed. And so it's cool to have those two different voices in the room, especially when you have a mix of veterans like this team does and a lot of really talented young guys that are feeding off of two different voices.
Agreed. Yeah, I got nothing for that, honestly. I'm just kind of, I am Les Austin. I imagine as you see Detroit versus everybody, I imagine he's a Michigan fan. Just because your schedule isn't maybe as strong as others doesn't make you a bad team. So, I mean,
Indiana beat Michigan last year, so that would make it even worse.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? That would be hilarious if he was a Michigan fan. We welcome all fan bases. Yeah. We welcome all fan bases because everybody's got
I love when Kentucky fans come in here, like when Notre Dame fans come in here. We had a Penn Stater come in here a couple times. It's good. All are welcome, Would love to just kind of just prepare people to just mentally prepare for Indiana still being good and still being relevant in the sport of college football.
Well, you know what most of those schools have in common, Brad? They tried to hire Brian Haynes as a defensive coordinator.
Oh, really?
And and they asked Kamara about that. He said he would have been upset if Haynes had left, but obviously he understands it's a business. It's funny. Kamara talked about his decision to come back. Surratt actually was a little bit closer to leaving than I thought he was. Talked about his decision to come back after the Notre Dame game. And you think of the timing of when all that Haynes news was happening around like New Year's, and it's just so important. He then went on to talk about the staff continuity. Like he said, Signetti understands who he has around and goes out of his way to keep those guys paid and gives them what they deserve and room to grow and support. And like, you don't just like stand by somebody for 8, 9, 10 years if they don't treat you right and put you in the best position to succeed. And like, it's not just Kamara saying this. It's not just Surratt saying this. It's not just Fisher saying this. Like, this is every single person who comes in contact with this program says the same thing. Like, this guy treats his assistants like gold because he understands who's around him. And that's a huge reason why they're so successful.
Agreed. And you also don't stay there that long if you're not bought in. That goes with any job. If you're not sold on the product, you're probably not going to stick around for a while.
Agreed.